Welcome to another episode of Inspired Voices. My name is Oliver Riera, and this is Tiffany Williamson.
Yes, I'm back.
We're back with Motherhood Unfiltered. It's the last week.
It is. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been
fun.
interesting, right?
We've talked about a lot of different things.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't think this would be like this in depth and like this many topics.
Yeah.
But we made it work, I think.
Yeah,
Well,
we covered a lot. I mean, hey, motherhood, child.
right. Again, just in case anybody's out there doesn't know who you are, could you tell them a little bit about what you do?
Yes, I am Tiffany Williamson. I am a licensed therapist, pregnancy coach, and corporate consultant. Yeah.
There we go. All right. Expertise of motherhood.
Yes.
Mother
all
of
things
three.
mom, and a mom of myself.
That's
Mother
right.
of three.
Yeah.
Work with moms.
All right.
Talking about moms.
I think that's important. I never knew that. Well, I never clicked, I think, never clicked the fact that there's therapists out there that work specifically with moms and stuff like that.
It is. It's a growing niche. I would say it's something you're called to. So I think for me, when I got into the counseling field was right after I had my firstborn. And I was in the thick of realizing there's so much that needs to be talked about. So as I got my counseling education, I knew immediately I'm going to be talking to moms.
Gotcha. So everything kind of lined up.
It did. It sure did.
And I feel like it made it easy for you, for your career.
It did. Yeah, it's a niche that I can speak confidently about. It's something that, it's not performative. I am living it every day. Like I said, mom of three, two of them being boys. So.
Oh, yeah. That's right. I heard about those boys.
Listen.
So today's episode, we're going to talk about fathers and how that they can support motherhood, the mothers, and from that perspective, I guess you could say, right? So I guess to kick it off, do you feel society expects more from mothers and fathers?
Of course.
Even nowadays?
Even in 2025, we still have a traditional mindset in our society in some ways. Of course, the mom does the physical work of bringing the child into the world, but there's still some thoughts of mom as, the first point of contact. So doctor's appointments. You'll hear the little joke of, if dad comes in, the doctors or the nurses don't expect to find out the real information. But they know if mom comes in, they'll be like, kid had a fever at 5:15 last night.
I don't know what it is about moms and memory.
You have to have your mind expanded, because who else is going to remember all the different things?
Yeah.
All the birth dates, all the weird intricacies of each child, and all the things. So by default, we have to have a good memory. Or at least we try to.
I feel like, do you feel like that's changing slightly? At
least
a little
mindset of yes.
Yeah.
I do think in more recent times we've seen the rise of the dad. Not to say dads weren't present, because I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying more from a media perspective.
Right.
They're adding in more so the dads and kind of showing almost the equal labor that can happen. Yeah. Versus it all being a mom. Mom has to do all the baths and the cooking and the cleaning and all of that. So that's exciting to see.
Yeah. So when it comes to dads understanding moms, what's the biggest emotional or physical change you wish dads understood more?
Wish dads understood more thinking about the transition to motherhood. If this is the first for both of you, neither one of you know what to expect, but understanding it sometimes in the first trimester, your partner, the person you're supporting that is now carrying the baby, they are going to feel all of the differences in their body, but they will still look like them.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to take a step back as the male and say, okay, they really are going through either morning sickness, which can last all day. It's not just in the morning, or different symptoms, or et cetera. And trying to now learn to reconcile this newness while still trying to work, still trying to show up, do all of these things while dealing with pregnancy fatigue or et cetera. So one of the first things we want dads to always recognize is in the first trimester, she may not physically outwardly show her stomach has not changed that she's pregnant, but the transition has already happened. We are already going through changes. And then once baby is here, and then once the kids are getting older, kind of allowing your partner to grow And it's kind of in both respects. The woman allowing the man to kind of grow into fatherhood, because again, it's new for him.
What does that mean? Does that mean more patience or something? Is that what that means?
Definitely more patience, more grace. I would say more than patience is more grace, giving each other grace. Because you may know each other as boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, and wife. Yeah. You have to now relearn each other as mother and father.
Yeah. So when the mother is going through that change in the very, very beginning, do you think a strategy would be for dads to, be a little bit more extra loving as far as like, wow, you look so beautiful, that type of thing?
I mean, it's going to depend on your partner.
Oh, yeah,
if they're a words of affirmation person, I think being more cognizant of that. Like I said, in the very beginning, when you first find out pregnant, you're going to look like yourself. It's not until you're almost towards the end where your body is morphed. And you may want some more compliments or maybe some more accommodations,
right.
Maybe the colder pillow or this side of the bed or, different things. That could always help. But it's more so like we've mentioned before about the communication. Talk. What does she need? Does she need more of this? Or maybe it's not about physical accommodations. Maybe it's more like helping her out with different tasks or taking this mental weight off of her about worrying about X, Y, and Z. It could be other stuff. So I always say communicate, communicate, communicate.
Yeah. Does that kind of dive into how fathers can help mothers hold on to their individuality? Or is that something completely different?
I think that conversation comes as mom and dad kind of step now into motherhood and fatherhood, and they kind of have their new roles, everybody giving each other grace and recognizing, again, if this is a first time parents for both, you don't know what to expect. Yeah. So you can't go into it, you may go into it with a certain mindset and thoughts, but you're giving each other grace to kind of grow into those roles, and you kind of both learning in the trenches together is what I always say. And when it comes to helping mom find her individuality, you're kind of working together to give each other room to grow. So kind of going back to what we were talking about at the very beginning is not always sticking to those traditional roles. So if someone's in the newborn stage, et cetera, helping with the diapers, helping with, changing their clothes, the baths and all of that, giving mom some space to rest, but also mom also recognizing dad needs some time to like get acclimated to fatherhood and that one-on-one time with baby, which can be helpful to the mom to have a little free time too. Sure, but then even as the kids grow, things change, the needs change, and also always giving each other the room and the grace to understand what you'll need as the relationship changes. I think contributes to that.
One of the things that like I really hear is how, for example, a mom seeing a dad, how he treats the son or daughter. He's parenting his way, but that won't always agree with the mom and how he's doing it. Do you see that like as a common thing with parents?
I don't know if it's a common thing. Yeah, I would say common. It's a normal thing because, again, there's no handbook for this. So you may go into parenthood thinking, I'm going to parent X, Y, and Z. But until it's literally your embodiment in a child looking at you, you don't know how it is you're going to do it. And, again, that's why I said you have to talk about parenting styles or even disciplinary styles, because I hear it a lot more when it comes to, like, the discipline aspect is where dad may have one thought, mom may have a different. And you guys got to figure out what you guys are going to do. Or it could be other bigger aspects of like, well, I want to raise my kids with this religion or that religion. So you kind of have to have those conversations. But if you don't, and you're kind of having them in the moment in real time, recognizing, okay, it's okay to have differences. Right. It's okay. We're two different people, two different humans now trying to raise our children, and there isn't, a gold standard. There isn't a rule book or a right answer. But that communication, it plays a part. Yeah,
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can communicate all you want, but when it comes to postpartum, that could completely change everything.
It could, because postpartum is one of those things you can't predict prior to postpartum. There's certainly markers that can, some people are more predisposed predisposed to postpartum depression if they've dealt with depression earlier in life. But you one, don't know if your partner will have postpartum depression, but you also don't know your reaction to it and how you as the partner will react. So the dad in that moment may feel abandoned a little bit, or may feel isolated if trying to also help their partner, but also trying to step into fatherhood and do all of the things with a newborn.
So what are some strategies to kind of go about that with like fathers, like dealing with how fathers, you know, they communicated and everything like that, but everything changed now. You know?
That's going to happen by default. So everything has changed in how to kind of mitigate those changes, really, or kind of help the transition of the change. I would say it's more so grace, giving each other grace and understanding at the end of the day, we're all humans, and mom doesn't have all the answers. She's figuring out just like you are. I often think back to like my first postpartum period. I'm like, me and my husband were in the trenches together. We both were figuring out and learning at the same time. It wasn't I knew more than him. Like, no, this was his first child and my first child. We were figuring it out together. But going through that experience helped us to also learn how to communicate, or even see like, okay, like maybe she needs a rest, or maybe she's a little overstimulated, or maybe he's overstimulated. To where now in raising the kids, we're able to spot those things without even a conversation.
Right.
You know, I don't have to communicate with him to be like, oh, okay, let's maybe try something else. Or maybe it's been a long day for me or a long day for him. So let's now acknowledge that within our parenting.
It has to do with emotional intelligence.
Very much so. Very much so. Because you're learning not only that child, but you're learning each other.
Yeah.
It's like another stage of your relationship.
I feel like that's hard when somebody doesn't really have that emotional intelligence kind of at a certain level.
Yeah,
you know? Or like,
I would agree.
I guess emotional intelligence with matching?
I don't know if it would be.
Does that matter? I don't think it matters, right?
I don't think it matters. Well, I would think you would want to have a partner where the emotional intelligence, you guys are moving in the same direction. Because I don't know if it's fair to say, well, you need to have the same amount of emotional intelligence as I do. But you want somebody that's going to be cognizant enough to know what they know and don't know, and maybe ask for help or communicate or over communicate, or even just acknowledge, hey, I'm feeling a little tension from you. Is that because of this, or are you just overstimulated? Because even something as simple as asking can stop an whole argument from happening and bringing more pressure to a situation, especially in the parenting phase.
I've been finding that premarital counseling is really helping.
Yes.
Right. Even though we're in the beginning stages and stuff like that. It's
still, yeah.
Like, wow, like, you know, going through our family past and how we dealt with our traumas growing up and stuff like that kind of really made a difference in how we see each other and communicate with each other and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I think it really just, like we've been talking about every single episode, I feel like is boils down to just communicating.
Communication is so big in the relationship aspect, because when you're talking about mom and dad, that's still another form of that relationship you have with your partner, or even if it's with someone that you're no longer together with, that's still a relational tie that you guys have. So communication is so key.
It's so hard sometimes to communicate, especially when maybe one person is distant or doesn't, just freezes, doesn't talk, just walks.
Absolutely. Well, everyone has different ways they argue or deal with intense emotions. Not everyone is going to be like a verbal person where they're just going to want to talk it out. Some people, they may shut down. They may that just be how they do it. They shut down, they process it, and they may come back and talk with you about it, and they may not. Some people, they just need a second. They need to go away, get their thoughts together, and then they can come back and talk to you about it. And that's the thing about relationships. You can't predict what each person's style is going to be until you're in that relationship. And the thing about motherhood and fatherhood, you almost have to learn how to do that on the spot when you also have kids involved. Because
Yeah.
if you're trying to raise your kids in a home that maybe doesn't have a lot of arguments, or trying to show mommy and daddy are friends, even if, let's say, it's a co-parenting relationship, or for those that are in relationship with their, partner, they're not trying to maybe show all the negative. So then it's, how do you get through arguments and different things like in real time, while dealing with different styles of communication?
Yeah.
Which is why I think premarital counseling, those types of things really help, because it kind of shows that before
Yeah.
you enter into.
I feel like in a
kids.
way, even though it's good to have premarital counseling, it's kind of scary because you're discussing things that are hard. Is it gonna break you? Is it gonna or is it gonna move you forward? It's like there's like this little bit of thought in like, man, this could break us. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's the thing about counseling. It's going to bring out those triggers. It's going to put them right in front of your face, and it's going to force you to decide, am I going to get through it, or am I going to run from it? And premarital counseling, like you're saying, is kind of pressure testing the relationship in a way where maybe organically you would have gotten to that point at some point, maybe a year in,
Probably
2 years
unhealthy.
in, or et cetera. But what you're doing is you're kind of bringing those issues to the forefront. We're kind of bringing attention to it so we can start to address it slowly.
Pressure testing is a really good.
It really is,
word to
and that's
use.
kind of what's happening, because you're bringing those things to the front. It's like you talked about different traumas and the triggers of childhood. That would have came up at some point, whether you got triggered by your own child or whatever. But what the counseling is doing is kind of putting it all there at the table, laying it out for you like a little buffet, and saying, okay, which one of these things are we going to tackle first, and how are we going to do it as a couple? Because going into relationships, the goal is to work together as a team and to tackle things together as a team. And sometimes it may be someone's initial issue individually at the start, as in they're bringing that trauma or they're bringing that into the relationship. But the whole point of relationships, marriage, and even getting the titles of mom and dad is, how do we work together as a team to accomplish this together?
Yeah.
Even if, as a team member, I'm not the active participant because it's not my trauma, but I'm here to support you. I'm here to show you, hey, you're not going to walk through this dark place by yourself.
Yeah. And then you got like the other side of things, as far as, I think about toughness with the kids. From a father perspective, it could be different from a mother perspective.
Absolutely.
And, I could see from a father standpoint that we don't want to raise a son that is easily scared by someone who's being really negative, yelling at him, or trying to fight them even. How do you balance that negative thoughts that coming at you, but still raising a strong kid? You know what I mean?
I think it's multi-layered, because as a mom myself, nurturing is always going to be nurturing first. Whereas I know for my husband, very much nurturing, but he's also thinking along those lines, especially with his sons. He wants them raised a certain way and instill certain values and core things in them. And so what I've learned as a mom is sometimes I have to take my hands off of it, because as a mom, I want to save, I want to coddle, I want to, make everything better. And that may not always lead to embodying all the things that are going to make men be able to survive in this world. And I recognize that because I'm not a man. I'm a female. So for me, I'm going to go towards the more delicate side. So also having enough trust in your partner to kind of take your hands off of it so they can show them how to lead. Because I can't show a man how to lead as a man. I can show you how to lead as a woman. So recognizing that role in that sense, and knowing when to back off and letting your partner lead and trusting in that.
Yeah, that's a big one. Is it a back off, or is there a balance of him doing his thing, but there's always a balance of there's also this delicate side
Oh, 100%.
that corresponds to the same thing.
100%. I like that the term balance, because I agree. Because I think, especially in today's world, it's not so much men need to be hard and men can't cry. Very much do not ascribe to that at all. It's more so you're trying to build a well-rounded person, a human, that is able to have their emotions and able to understand emotions are okay. They're not a negative thing.
Yeah.
While also, that balance of, but how do you kind of show up? What is the world seeing you as? So let me help you kind of build those values as well. Because my goal as a mom is not to have sons that can't end up being husbands.
Right.
And to be a husband is to also be able to emotionally connect with a partner. So I can't stifle that when they're a child if I'm expecting them to grow up and be able to not shut down in a hard conversation, or to not feel safe with their emotions, so that they can't even be a good partner when they get to that point. And Lord, we're not rushing them. But, I think enough in advance that I'm like, I want them to not only be great sons and do all the things, but to also have the emotional intelligence that they are able to form long-lasting relationships. And that involves a level of emotions.
Yeah. So when say, for example, your husband is teaching the boys something that you said you needed to back off from, you let him do his thing. Do you then go back maybe later on that day or the next day and kind of address it from your side?
I think it's not about, if you and your partner in communication, there's nothing that he or she that would be doing that would be so far out of the realm that would require me having to go back and do like a circle back. Let me fix what your dad just did.
I wouldn't say fix, but just adding on that balance, I guess you could say.
Not really, because what he would be doing would still be in alignment with what I would follow. So for example, just to make it easy, if my sons were to get hurt, my first inclination would be like, oh my God, is everything fine? And it could be something that wouldn't really hurt them, but because I'm giving them such a reaction, they're like, oh, mommy, it hurts. Whereas dad may be like, you're fine. Everything's okay. And they get back up and start playing and don't even think about crying.
Right.
Both of those reactions are still kind of within the both of those reactions are still deemed acceptable as far as within our relationship and what we would want in raising our kids. I'm not saying you ever want to be in a place where like your partner is doing something that's so outrageous and then you're kind of having to go back and be like, okay, well now let me give you a hug. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you and your partner should still be in alignment of, we want to raise our kids a certain way, while also recognizing I am not a man, so there's certain things I can't impart in them.
Right.
But I still agree with and value how you're going about it.
Right. Yeah. When you were talking about the kid falling and stuff like that, like that just reminds me of like I've seen a few of my friends and stuff like that have, the kid has fell and the brother and the mom like ran to him. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Man, but like he just fell on like hay. It's like
Exactly.
And I just looked at that, I was like, what is
Yes.
that was like a Full House moment right there.
Yeah.
And it's like,
it can kind of be because, and it's almost funny when you see kids do that, because when on those moments where I don't do it and I'm like, no, they really are fine. They really are fine.
Yeah.
But if you give them that extra layer, they're going to soak it up. And be like, oh my God, I can't walk.
That's true, yeah. I remember teaching Munchkins, and she was like 6 years old or something like that. And we were, this little other kid, Ollie, he just kind of, his impulse was to pull out a chair while she was sitting down.
Kids.
She busted her butt on the ground, right? And I could see her eyes start to welt. And I just said, you're fine, get up. It's good. And she got up, sat down, didn't cry.
Yeah.
And then, I didn't even have to tell Ollie to apologize to her, because like I was looking at them and he was like, I'm sorry, stuff like that. But like, I think it's the when do you, oh my God, and when do you like, you're fine, okay, stuff like that.
One thing as a mom, there are certain cries in certain levels of pain and hurt, you will be able to discern in your kid's voice.
Oh, interesting.
And it starts when they're an infant. Like you'll be able to, there's a cry for food, there's a cry for boredom, there's a cry like, oh, my baby is hurt.
Really?
And
You distinguish it as a baby?
Yes, you will distinguish it as a baby. And there's, again, it's just something you'll start to hear. And both partners will hear it. Like they'll be like, oh, it's hunger, or no, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And there's a cry that moms will hear that you will take off running to your child. What is wrong with you? And that follows them in life. That you can kind of tell, like, oh, they cried and it was a little, they're fine. Versus, no, they're actually in pain.
Yeah.
So you can start to gauge it and gauge your reaction of like,
Interesting.
am I running full speed, or is it like a just make sure everything is fine kind of thing?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, that's good to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming back on the
Of
show for the
course.
last time.
Yes. Well, the
it's-
last time for this series.
For this series, yeah, exactly. I learned a lot. How did you feel about it?
I felt like we went over a lot too. I felt like we went over a lot of topics that are needed, especially in this day and age that many aren't talking about, but they may be thinking about in their minds.
Yeah.
And be wanting to talk about, especially the father piece, because I feel like in all the books, again, it's just about the mom. And then the dad is not really seen, not really talked about. The dad just kind of appears when the kid is 6 months, like, oh, there's dad. But the focus is so much on baby or mom that I think more conversation needs to be had about fatherhood and the male perspective and feeling supported. So I think this was a really good episode.
Yeah, it's a good segue into next month of June, where I'm actually going to have on Jaman. He was on the podcast a long time ago, but he actually talks. He has a group where he talks to father, and they talk about fatherhood. And he's a speaker.
I'm excited to hear his perspective.
Yeah, so look out for that. It's going to
Yes.
be released every Friday of June for
That'll be
Father's
good.
Day. That's going to be interesting. Yeah,
I'm excited to hear that because, again, we always talk about the moms,
Yeah.
which we matter and are important, but also the dads matter too.
It's a partnership,
So it
right?
is. It really is, and we want it to be a partnership. So more conversation needs to happen with the dads.
Yeah, I feel like I am gonna be the best husband and father
You are.
after our
Absolutely.
conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you definitely educated me on that, so I appreciate that.
Nice. Well, happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to tell everyone where they can reach you?
You guys can reach me at transformativedestiny.com. You can also reach me on social media at Transformative Destiny, and that's on Instagram, Facebook, and also LinkedIn.
There we go. All right, that's Motherhood Unfiltered. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned for Fatherhood Unfiltered. Ooh,
I am excited.
it's gonna be good.
I'm excited about that.
I'm gonna learn some things. All right.